the people who made Hocus Pocus 2 watched Hocus Pocus, didn't really remember it, but didn't really like it, and then went on to make Hocus Pocus 2. Hey, hi, hello, how are you? I'm Pia. Today I'm going to be talking about Hocus Pocus 2, the awful sequel, Hocus Pocus 2, At What Cost? Can't say it like that. I always do that and I hate it. When I get asked the question of what is your favorite movie, I typically lie and I don't say that it's Hocus Pocus. When it really is, I usually try to go for like a more film school answer. And while I do love Lady Bird, I do love 20th Century Women, Hocus Pocus has my heart and soul. So I was so excited when the sequel got announced and it was really like moving forward in production. This is a cult classic, like that's like a huge understatement, but like stepping on my little postcard that I literally have with the witches. Wait, that's actually so funny. I didn't mean to do that. Also with my notebook that has Hocus Pocus stickers. I'm not even kidding. This was not planned. It was a movie that wasn't initially like had the same kind of cult acclaim that it does right now. And I think because of that, it has been so long. Obviously, this is a very long awaited sequel. It's 29 years later. And I think it put a lot of pressure on it. To be quite fair, I mean, I have only loved and rewatched and watched this movie since I think I was in like probably either early high school or late middle school. So I've already seen it, you know, more than 10 times. It was out, you know, 25-ish years before that, so it has got a lot of time to sit and settle, for people to ruminate, for people to memorize. It had a lot of pressure going into the sequel for sure. So unfortunately, I do have to talk about why you shouldn't watch this movie in this video because I feel like I was done so dirty. So I'll go through kind of my list of things of what went wrong in my opinion, kind of going through things I think we would have liked to see more of, you know, suggestions and things. Obviously, this is all in good fun to a certain extent. I mean, I do wish I got the time back. I had to watch the movie in its entirety. I meant to not finish it, but then I had to realize I have to make this video. I have to tell people that that Rotten Tomatoes score is absolutely incorrect. This movie is garbage. So I have to just stick it through for that. The siren's going off for the last 20 minutes and I made it. So that's why we are here today. I don't think that it's impossible to do a sequel, you know, like a longer amount of time later. Obviously it's not, I guess, as common is what we could say. You know, we've got like things like Ghostbusters Afterlife, we have like Cruella and Mamma Mia 2. Those are a couple of things that I'm going to be drawing comparisons to. I think Mamma Mia 2 is one of the greatest sequels in history, definitely the greatest like long-awaited sequel, and I think that is really what I would like to focus on because I think it has such a direct comparison to this movie. And I'll tell you freaking why. Because that does what I think the filmmakers of Hocus Pocus 2 were going into it with. Also, no disrespect to the filmmakers of Hocus Pocus, which I will talk about a little bit later because I adore them and I think they did a beautiful job, obviously. I like to think that the people who made Hocus Pocus 2 watched Hocus Pocus, didn't really remember it, but didn't really like it, and then went on to make Hocus Pocus 2. Because there is this amount of like disrespect and like parody kind of style to the movie that as a fan of the things that they're making fun of is a little bit hurtful. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it did really rub me the wrong way, but I do think they were attempting to do this thing and it's completely understandable. They're saying, hey, we want to recognize the past. We want to recognize not only the past of our characters, of our narrative, but we also want to recognize our past viewers and audience, and we want to bring it into the present, a modern day sense. Totally chill. Makes a lot of sense. I understand what you're trying to do. I see the logic. It all adds up. But it was, I mean, I feel like unsuccessful is an understatement in that regard. I mean, this movie operates, and when I say this movie, it's so hard to distinguish, but the sequel operates under the assumption that the witches, the Sanderson sisters, were the main characters of Hocus Pocus. Now, I have seen Hocus Pocus over 10 times and I never got that. I'm not sure who got that. Again, I think it could have been a villain origin story, which you see a little bit in the beginning of the film. You have this flashback sequence, the young Sanderson sisters, and they are, you know, hated and weirdos and they are ostracized, and you kind of see this villain origin story and you kind of see where the plot, or where you think the plot is going. And in that sense, it definitely felt like it was going to be a Cruella type of movie where, you know, maybe you feel some sort of empathy towards the people that you were meant to hate, the villains, if you will, of Hocus Pocus. I mean, Hocus Pocus, it's not like, there's no really, as much as they're eating children, it's really, they're not like super big, bad, scary, horrific people. I think the original does a really great job of not taking itself too seriously, but in a more lighthearted way rather than a more self-deprecating way that the sequel takes on. You know, we have our witches, they're the main characters, they're who you're here to see, unfortunately. Now, is that because those are the actors that wanted to be onto the project? I don't think so. I mean, initially when I saw I was gonna say the casting, but I guess would you call it casting if they're like a sequel? I was excited to see that the witches were reprising their roles. What's strange to me is that they didn't bring the kids back, and obviously, like I said, they were the heart of the original. They were who made you laugh, who made you cry, and who you like root for, who you align yourself with as like an audience member. That was interesting that they weren't considered for reprising those roles that are, again, so essential to the heart of the film. And it goes back to my issue with disrespect a little bit of the new filmmakers for the sequel. I'm laughing, but it's horrible. But the original cast members who have gone on to do acting, and some have, you know, pursued other careers. I mean, they were kids, so, but they all like pretty much said that they were not approached with the sequel, but they were really honestly way more kind than I would have been if I was in such a cult classic movie that they were making a big budget, hello budget sequel to that literally has a sponsorship embedded in it, and they didn't approach me about it. And if I was like, I was the main character and you didn't really want to talk to me, I would be really mad. But they took it in stride, honestly. I read one Thora Birch interview where she actually was supposed to be written into the narrative, but it ended up conflicting with her schedule. Kind of the main takeaway I have for this whole situation is that the director said that they didn't even want to like put these kids, well, they're not kids anymore, but the original cast members, they didn't even want to fit them into the narrative, and they were like, there's no room for them in this narrative that makes sense. It's like, and their justification was essentially that big fans would not be kind of appeased with just a cameo or a, you know, someone in the background. I think that's a little bit overgeneralized, maybe. Like, I just don't think that's as considerate, maybe, is the right word, because I do think that any kind of effort to put that forward. I mean, I keep seeing these articles that are like, all the nods in Hocus Pocus 2 to Hocus Pocus 1, and I'm like, when the actual movie looks and feels and leaves you with nothing like the original, how can you be like, oh, but look at the pattern of her dress, it's like no. I guess we're already kind of getting into my problems. I think we can talk about like the feel of the movie is obviously different. Like I said, it has this kind of satirical value to it. You start with the origin story of the witches as kids, and they're, you know, beep-bopping along, and they learn about this magical spell that makes them the grandest witch in the town or whatever. And that's cool. Like, that actually makes sense to me. I feel like that was a good step in the right direction. But again, I think there were opportunities that were missed. You know, they could have like woven in more of that kind of like flashback kind of thing. See, I hesitate in saying flashback because there's also flashbacks to the actual original movie, which I'll talk about. I guess I'll call that something different when we get there. So these flashbacks, I feel like they were underutilized. They really could have gone back to them later in the movie and woven them through the narrative. But they were a little bit like, here you go, move on, which is fine. I mean, it's kind of like, I guess you could say they're trying to mimic the original, where they start with like, you know, look, they conjure, like,
look, they conjure.
I get it with Emily and Banks and whatever. But yeah, like I said, it's just a little bit unsuccessful, and also they could have like explained more things about these girls rather than just showing them. One thing in particular I thought could have been included very easily was kind of their different powers. You know, are sisters, but they're all of different fathers, and that's why they all have different powers, you know. For example, Mary is like part bloodhound, I believe, and those were parts that were actually like cut out of the original movie just for runtime and such. You don't really get a sense of like how they came into their witchhood, and like, yeah, you really don't get a good sense of them as characters, which you would think would be the point of the flashback, is to kind of create this empathy link with them, but it's really not. So it's an interesting thing that just has really no purpose besides saying, okay, they want to be the most powerful witches, which besides eating children is their new goal. So, you know, obviously that's a little bit different than the original movie. I mean, the thing is, like, eating children, I have described it to kids and like they're like, yeah, that's like kind of scary. Like, I don't know, maybe it is just like a lack of like, you know, it was 1993 was a while ago, so things are different. You know, the virgin lighting the candle is something that I think is such an easy joke to kind of make fun of because of just the whole flimsy issue that is virginity. But what I was saying is that in Hocus Pocus, the idea of having Sanderson sisters that suck the lives out of children so that they can stay beautiful and young forever, or live forever, I guess is a better way of saying that, is more of a cartoony kind of like cartoony, lighthearted concept, at least to me, than just like being the darkest witch and having all the power ever. At least to me, that's how it feels to me, because I do think that this movie is trying to take on a lot of darker tones. And let's talk about those darker tones, shall we? Let's get to present day in the storyline. We have our young witch. I don't know any of these people's names, and I don't care. We have our young witch who, again, I think this is a smart plot line. I would love to see what like witchcraft is like in a modern day sense. Obviously in Hocus Pocus there were no other witches. Like they just like, either they didn't exist or like they were like on the low key, like I don't know. This is very cool, but from the get-go you know this is dark like shit going on. Like this is lighting candles, like voodoo magic. This is like Ouija boards type of witchcraft, which again has this darker undertone, which you see in the movie actually. I would say it's reflected in the narrative and the set design and also the like coloring and the direction, but I wouldn't say it's reflected at all in the script. Like I said, it's a very like slapstick almost kind of script. But anyways, so this has like a very darker tone, and like I said, it's reflected in the coloring. There's so much emphasis on this, like on the shadows, and it's all very cool toned. You can just look at like side-by-side screen caps. I'll put them up. You know, Hocus Pocus, it's like cozy, it's fall, it's got this warm, welcoming kind of color palette. You know, it's like a little grainy because it's like from the 90s. It kind of has very low contrast, and then you go over to like the new sequel and it's very like, the contrast is high, the shadows are way up there, cool tone to the max, and it's super different. I think that it is also directed very differently. Let's go to that. It's directed a little bit like a play, lots of long shots, hardly any close-ups. It's almost like, it's very spooky, but in like the wrong kind of way. Hocus Pocus is spooky in the sense that it's like you're reading a book. It's like you're reading an old story. It's spooky in the sense of like a campfire story and something like that. And whereas Hocus Pocus 2 is this kind of, you're watching Paranormal Activity. Like it's kind of more in the vein of that, direction-wise and such. But it's also, you know, it's filmed like a play, which is so strange. And it's also, oh, this is like one thing that really bugs me. It's also a musical for no reason. And again, this is why I don't think they really paid attention to that movie, because Kenny Ortega, the love of my life, let me talk about Kenny Ortega for like at least 10 minutes of your time. Kenny Ortega directed Hocus Pocus. He went on to direct so many other things. He's a director, choreographer. It's really shown in Hocus Pocus because this is one of his only films that wasn't a musical that he directed, because he just has such a good grasp of movement of a scene and that relationship with the actor and the camera. That's really shown in Hocus Pocus. You know, obviously he's directed, like, let me name a fucking Disney franchise, High School Musical franchise, the Descendants franchise, most recently Julie and the Phantoms. I'm sure he read the script. I'm sure he was approached and he read the script and he was like, decline. Like, I hope that that's what happened, because if they didn't originally reach out and be like, okay, we're still in like the storyboarding phase, you know, we'd love your input as the OG director. And if they didn't do that, if they just like completely ignored the legend that is Kenny Ortega, I will riot. Yeah, I think that's what's strange, is because, you know, he went on to direct musicals, but it is one of his only films that's not a musical. It does have a musical number. I love the musical number. It's iconic.
I put a spell on you. And now you're mine.
It functions well within the original movie because it is not a musical. A musical, let me just describe what a musical is to you, just in case you don't know. A musical is a warped reality where you sing things that you are doing, and the singing aspect of it is not acknowledged, right? In Hocus Pocus, it is not a musical because the singing aspect is recognized and known to the other characters as well as the audience, because they're on a stage and there is a microphone and they are not singing their dialogue or intentions. It is a song that functions as a spell.
I put a spell on you.
Good joke. Happy Halloween. Thanks a lot. No, man, I'm serious. Yeah. You got it.
Doesn't make it a musical. However, in the sequel, like I said, I think they watched Hocus Pocus, didn't really remember it, and they made the sequel because they said, okay, there was a musical number, therefore it was a musical, which obviously we know is incorrect. So in Hocus Pocus 2, when the witches come back from the dead because another black flame candle somehow exists, and now there's like 100 million of them, as we find out at the end, they're just like out of the fucking wazoo with the black flame candles. Like, they don't even have normal candles anymore in Salem. So when the witches come back, they do this number, and they're like, we're back.
Yeah, the spell is gonna hit ya 'cause the witches are back.
Yeah, that's what they do. So it is filmed like a play in that sense as well, and they do like a dance number, and it's to no one. They're in the middle of the forest. Actually, it's not to no one. I believe there's someone there, witnesses them, and they're just like, they're in a musical now.
Who are they performing for?
Which is like this meta thing, and it's just, again, it's this like kind of easy jokes that's just a joke because it's dumb. You know, it's not like a thoughtful kind of joke. It's like, who are you supposed to be? Madonna.
What are you supposed to be?
Madonna. Well, you know. Well, obviously. Don't you think?
There's no real like thought to it other than like laughing at the fact that it's happening. Which is lazy, maybe. Maybe that's better. Let's talk about the callback. So now the witches are back. And do the witches have any lines that are not written in Hocus Pocus? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what percent of Hocus Pocus 2's script is directly copied and pasted from Hocus Pocus. If they were to submit the Hocus Pocus 2 script as if it were an essay onto Turnitin, they would have way too much of a percentage of plagiarism that they would not pass the class. So like I said, we're talking about callbacks. I do know I'm talking about movies here, and I know that I am a writing person and I watch a lot of movies, so I do think I have a little bit of knowledge, but I don't. Don't at the end of the day. I'm gonna call it a callback because I know that that's something in like sitcoms and stuff that, you know, essentially a callback functions as a repeated joke, a repeated bit, a running gag, what have you. For example, in Seinfeld, if you were to watch it and they said, George is getting angry, then it would be a callback to a previous episode. Got it? Cool. So I'm gonna call these callbacks because our lovely Sanderson sisters are repeating lines from classic lines, you know, classic phrases that we all know and love. We all have, you know, tattooed on our assholes in Hocus Pocus 2 for really no discernible reason for the most part. It's one thing to have it integrated into, I don't know, a conversation, and it's another to just be like, I am directly saying this line because I know that you love this line. You love when I say this line. So I'm gonna say it even though it has nothing to do with anything that's going on. And it doesn't, you know, fit in the scene into whatever's going on, to the conversation. What this does, what doing just like saying a line for the purpose of saying that line and having it said and having it be repeated, what that does is it negates the initial feeling and initial response that you had to that line. For example, when Winifred says,
All Hallows Eve has become a night of frolic, where children wear costumes and run amok.
that was funny initially, but is not when
we run amok in Salem. Don't make me come over there with this broom.
maybe just like the setup of it is so obvious, again, that you're like, you are just saying amok because you know that I loved that joke initially. I think it's a slippery slope, really. Like, it's obviously there are ways you can do it well, and like I said, you know, in sitcoms and comedies and stuff, they do it all the time. I guess one of the main problems with it is if you are repeating something like a phrase and you're, you know, trying to get a certain desired effect that you got the first time you did it and you're doing it a second time. It's just like anything, like just like repeating a joke. Like a joke the second time is not usually as funny as the first time. Like that's just like, I feel like that makes perfect sense, right? And you know, that's for a lot of reasons, and one being that second joke, you are thinking about the first time you told that joke, right? And that can, you know, work in your favor or not. But in this case, you are so directly compared to the first time you said those lines, those words, that if it's even a little bit off, you know, the placing of when you're saying it, where you're saying it, the context, like I said, if it doesn't literally fit into the conversation that you're having and it's just placed there for shits and giggles, or if you're literally like saying it differently, your intonation's a little bit differently, your diction's wrong or off. Sorry, I would hate to be Alan Rickman here, but just even if it's a little bit different, you are going to be disappointed. You're not going to have that same reaction. And that's why it's so hard to kind of pull off, I think, in a sense. And I think it was something that maybe they thought would be a lot easier because they're like, okay, we can just say these things that we know people love and people go crazy for. But I think there needs to be a little more thought put into it there. That just is really lacking, and which is why it really honestly made me sad. A lot of this movie made me sad. Like, I think I cried because I was just I'm so deeply affected by this movie. So it is not enough to just say a line that we know and love from a previous movie. We actually have to put in clips of the previous movie. So there are clips of the original Hocus Pocus in the sequel of Hocus Pocus. Yes, it is true. They do have a little cute little visco filter on it to try to match the vibe of the second movie, but you can see the grain a little bit. And again, I'm going back to my knowledge of sitcoms and calling it a clip show because everyone's least favorite episode of their favorite sitcom was the clip show. Sure, I know why it was put in there. I did a little research. For the sake of this movie, you are not only getting told and retold and told again the story of the plot of the previous movie, and also like just some new, a little bit of new backstory. Now you're shown it, and that's where it's a little bit crazy. It's a little bit crazy, I think, to just see the whole like poofing of the witches at the end of the first movie. It's a little bit jarring. It's definitely strange. Like, why? You know? That like sprayed the fuck. Because then you're already asking questions about the previous movie and you don't even have the cast for there. So it's hard for me to talk about that plot hole at the end of the movie, which we all hoped would be resolved in this movie, which is where Bestie, freaking Ice, the other doofus, are like trapped by the witches. Whatever happened to them? I want to know. It's literally what I was there for. He brought me new characters that you said like witnessed the events of the previous movie. Okay. Like I said, it's a way to do summary, sure. However, it was not done effectively because it wasn't integrated into the story. It made no sense. Hey, I watched that movie, like obviously, like why would I watch a sequel if I didn't watch the previous movie? Especially this sequel because it's like so all over the place. It's my mind during midterm season. Like it makes that little sense. I guess we could like go back to present day, talk about the characters, talk about what's going on there. I get it, you know, we love a 3-person friend group. We really do. I mean, I think a 3-person friend group is so unsuccessful in real life, and that's why there's so much like tension in the movie, but really the tension is so quickly resolved. You know, we've got this group of girls, these girl bosses, and it's the girl boss witch's birthday and they're all doing witchy things, but like girl boss number 2 has a boyfriend who's like into having parties at her house instead of witchy things, so she like goes and hangs out with him instead. And so girl bosses number 1 and 3 are pretty upset. That's literally the conflict, and then it gets resolved pretty easily. She's like, I just like want to have a boyfriend and also have friends. It's like, get you a girl that can do both. I don't know. And like, I mean, they're trying their best. I'm not here to roast anyone's acting performance. I'm not here to do it because I'm not here to perform a monologue. I can't do that for you. So I'm not here to roast you. Like, attention to whatever that present day timeline stuff was going on, like it was so, like, who even thought of it? Like there was no thought taken into account of like what was going on. They were just like, we have 3 girls, one is like kind of witchy and they're having conflict, and then we have the witches come back and they're gonna stop them, and that's it. That's literally it. I think someone has moms too. To wrap it up for just like summarizing the things in I guess kind of chronological order of the sins of Hocus Pocus 2 is I guess we can stop. Hello? Whoa. I guess we can end with the resolution as would make sense. The resolution is done mostly off camera, which I don't know about you, but I think that's a cardinal sin of filmmaking and anything in general, really. Like the story, having your characters be able to come to a conclusion. You know, they were like, oh, but like you got all the power so it killed your sisters, and then we found the spell like somehow off camera, like we didn't tell you about it, you the audience, we didn't tell you the audience about how we found the solution to this plot that is so convoluted that literally maybe 2 plot points happen in the entire movie. We didn't tell you that we figured it out off camera, but yeah, we found the spell and it's gonna not make them come back to you, but it's gonna make you disappear, so see you later, you got peace now. Winifred is like, oh, like you got your girl gang, so like hold on to them, sister. And like she's like, you're a strong bitch, like you can do it. And it's like, I would have loved like to see her like mentor this bitch, like I don't know, anything else. So now we're done with the movie. We saw that little like Marvel end credit scene of like there might be a 3rd movie, which is like, I literally will like, where's the news? Like I don't know. When I read that headline of like, oh, there might be a 3rd movie, and then I watched that end credit scene and I was like, who in the Stanley do you think you are? Very upset about that one. The cat who's Binks but not Binks. Let's go to the idea of the plot, the non-existent plot, the one that makes no sense. Because let me tell you about a plot that made sense and that was like satisfactory. I wouldn't say it's the best. I've gone on Goodreads and like the girlies have spoken, it's not the best. But there was a novelization of Hocus Pocus. It was in a book called Hocus Pocus and the all-new sequel. It came out in 2018, I believe. Disney Book Group decided that the author was so irrelevant that her name is not even on the cover or like the spine. Came out, and obviously like any good Hocus Pocus fan, I read it. Again, I read it in 2018, so like, sorry, that was a while ago. I really enjoyed my time reading this. It was entertaining, and I am the biggest Hocus Pocus fanatic, and I really liked the addition to it. Modern kind of twist. I know it did change some of the things from the movie, which some people have problems with, but of course, like, how else are you gonna do that when you're trying to make a sequel and the story itself like finished itself up pretty nicely? I don't know, I wasn't blown away with it, but I did really enjoy reading it. I still can't figure out why this book came out. I think it was maybe just the fact that it was like the 25th anniversary of Hocus Pocus, and they were like, let's make a sequel but as a novel. See, like, that's where you lose me. Like, I get get it was the 25th anniversary, but book? Like, how did we get there? I don't know. But anyway, so they like novelized the first movie, the original. And, you know, it was bippity boppity boo. It was great, I guess. It was a novelized version of a script, like, I don't know. And then they wrote the author. I don't know her name because Disney said they were irrelevant. I'm sorry, no disrespect to them. They wrote a sequel, and in this sequel, we are following. See, this is where it's amazing. This is where you sold me initially. One is gay, so fantastic. It has a female-female relationship where we are following Poppy. She is the daughter of Allison and Max Dennison. Okay, I had to like think of how to say his name. And she is Poppy, she has a girl bestie, and they're gonna like first crushy. I don't remember how the wishes go back. I don't know really exactly what's happening there, but you have this really great integration of saying, hi, I really want to expose Hocus Pocus, this very great classic of a Halloween film, to a new audience, bring it to the younger kids, show them, hey, hi, hello, what's up? And I also want to do a service to the original fan. And it really accomplished that. Again, I'm saying that I don't remember a lot of the plot, but I do remember being satisfied. And I think that's probably the best way I can explain that to you. I had another 3-person friend group. So we had Poppy, her girl crush best friend, and then a guy, I believe. So we had kind of that dynamic as well. So it really did a great job of like mirroring Hocus Pocus while like doing something a little bit different. And I don't know what happened with that. I genuinely don't know, because I don't know why it was made. So I don't know yammering because I don't know. I just don't know why the screenwriters of Hocus Pocus 2 didn't just, I honestly, like, it would have been easier to just be like, we have the book. we have the spell book, we can write the script. So
all right, hi, this is Girl Boss Bestie editing Pia to give you a little update on something I've learned since editing this video, or while editing this video, I guess I should say. And that is that I found an interview with Omri Katz, who plays a Max Dennison in Hocus Pocus, where he acknowledges the fact that this random ass sequel book was written and discusses whether or not that will be the plot of this possible third movie. And I just wanted to include that because I found that very interesting, and I've already talked about how I don't know what I think about having a third movie, but if it does try to make things better, then I guess I'll be down to watch it and I guess make another video.
I genuinely have no idea because again, I don't think it was because the original actors weren't going to come back, because they said literally in every interview I've read, they have said that they would have loved to. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Maybe it was like a lower budget, because Hocus Pocus 2 had such a high budget, like you could tell, because they had that Walgreens sponsorship and they were like getting the cash money, and like the Roomba, like I don't even want to talk about the Roomba, dude. At the end of the day, like, Kenny would never. I just like have a lot of faith in Kenny, and I'm really happy he's not attached to this project at all. Really, none of the OGs are attached to this project, which makes me happy because it sucked, but also makes me sad because I think that when you create something so successful and so beloved and have the opportunity to kind of like, you know, rekindle that magic, maybe, or maybe they didn't get the opportunity to rekindle that magic, and that's really sad to me as a person and lover of so the thing that group of people, that team of set designers, of editors, of directors and writers, all the team that went into creating Hocus Pocus, I just feel like it's really sad to me that they didn't really get to have a hand in extending their story and in taking what they created and making it and making the sequel. That's really sad to me. I think that's one of the biggest things, is like, not only did you disrespect the actors, but you disrespected that entire crew. And I don't know if that's Disney. Disney has definitely a lot of sins to atone for. And it's so weird, it has a better Rotten Tomatoes rating. Like, how, in what fucking world does this have better Rotten Tomatoes rating? It was like watching The Eternals. Ah, it was so bad. To finish this off, I'm going to read some of the fun, funky headlines that I have found while I was doing research. So we have from NPR, Hocus Pocus 2 conjures nostalgia, but does it recapture the magic? I say no. One piece of hair is like yeeting. I don't know what she's doing, but she's having a blast. Okay, from the Johns Hopkins newsletter, Hocus Pocus 2, a nostalgic mess. Oh, I love this one from NPR. The Sanderson sisters are back in Hocus Pocus 2. But why? From LMC Experience, Hocus Pocus 2 is a messy, nostalgic trip. And lastly, from Hollywood in Toto, Hocus Pocus earned its cult status. Hocus Pocus 2, not a chance. Oh, this is all in good fun. It really is. If you take away anything from this video, is that if you have not watched Hocus Pocus 2, please do yourself the great service of not watching it and watching Hocus. I'll go get it. Oh my god, I will literally cry if that breaks. Here we have it, in case you needed it, in case you wanted to see that I am a true fan. I mean, I am a true fan. Do yourself a favor. If you don't have Disney Plus, get the DVD. It's probably more expensive now though, isn't it? See, when I first and I accidentally ripped it too. When I actually bought this, I believe it was on sale. This has some great fun features as well. I would recommend. Yeah, like I said, I would really recommend going back to the classics. I don't think there's anything wrong with sequels, that a sequel can be done well. I think it's tricky. I think sequels are one of the most difficult forms of media, maybe. I think sequels are one of the most difficult things to do well. There are lots of bad ones out there, which is why you really need to read this. Read this? Watch this. Whoa. It is in this time of like kids and children entertainment where it's meant to be watched by the whole family. So there are the like more like adult kind of humor jokes, there are more like older kid jokes, and they're more like younger kid humor. And I think it really does a great job of kind of melding those two. Like I said, the script is fantastic. It's funny, but in a very effortless kind of way. The acting is fantastic. I really do have to say that. It really is. My favorite is the dub of 1993. It's so good. You are bound to have a good time. It is so sweet, so wholesome. You'll cry by the end. I freaking bet you. My favorite movie, and if you love Hocus Pocus, please let me know in the comments down below so we could gush about it. It would be really fun. I think I need to just like watch it again to just try to get that other one out of my head, so I recommend you do the same. Happy Halloween, my lovelies. Halloween is my favorite time of year, so it is always spooky season in my heart. So let me know your thoughts on Hocus Pocus or Hocus Pocus 2 in the comments down below. What movie do you think, what cult classic movie do you think deserves a long-awaited sequel? Actually really love to know. If you want to see more videos talking about movies here on my channel, I don't do a lot of them. I usually talk about movies in their relation to books. I did have a little bookish thing going on here. I can't help it. But if you want to see more talking about movies, because I do watch a lot of movies, I have a big movie love and heart, so I do kind of like go analyze my movie choices and also the choices of the people in the movies and the people making them. So with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe to all the things, and I will see you next video. Bye. I filmed for way too long. I was supposed to eat dinner.